Well, we're joined now by Joe Greco. He's the Senior Vice President of Terra-Gen Power, and we're talking a little bit about the geothermal portfolio that the company has. Joe, good to see you.
Nice to see you.
You guys develop wind, solar, and geothermal projects. How much does geothermal make up of your portfolio?
Well, at Terra-Gen, we have a total of 830 megawatts of existing plants, and our geothermal portfolio is about 370 megawatts of that. And so our wind is about the same, roughly 350 megawatts, and our solar is about 80 megawatts.
Geothermal in Nevada, California?
Yes, that's right. In the West, we have our site, COSA, which is roughly 300 megawatts. That's on the China Lake Weapons Station. And then we have two sites in Nevada. We have our Dixie Valley site, which is about 60 megs, and our Biawawi site, which is about 18.
So are you mostly developing these projects from the exploration phase, or are you acquiring projects?
Well, those are existing sites, but we are developing other sites in Nevada right now. We have sites in the area of the Dixie Valley site that we do have, and we're developing 3 sites right around in that area, roughly about 100 megawatts apiece. A little smaller than that from an interconnection perspective, but we do have sites in that area, plus we have other leaseholds specifically in the state of Nevada as well. And we like working in the state of Nevada, working through Reno. There's a good support base there from the Reno folks.
Nevada, California, certainly the leading markets by far in geothermal. Great support there from state governments, but it's been pretty tough for geothermal players in the last couple of years. Difficult to get financing for later stage plants. How's it been for you, given the rocky financial markets?
Well, we just refinanced our geothermal site in Dixie Valley, which we were successful there. We were also successful in financing our wind sites, but you are correct. Part of what we're finding is that the error in the stimulus funding is important to our success. So the cash grant, ITC, tax credit, what have you, is important, and we're hoping we can get that package moved forward a little bit. Also to work with the geothermal folks or the folks in session to extend that geothermal portfolio to get on par with the solar folks, so we can have those placed in service by 2016 rather than 2013, because it does take a good 5 years to develop those sites. And so taking the risk of drilling wells and then going to financing does take a bit more time, but we think we can get there.
So the stimulus package has had a big impact. Have any of your projects qualified for American Recovery and Reinvestment Act funds?
Yes, on the wind side. In the geothermal side, what we are looking at is we have through the DOE Geothermal Grant Program, we've obtained funding for $2 million for 2 binary bottoming cycles, one at our Biawawi site for roughly 2.5 megawatts, and at our Dixie site for roughly 5.5 megawatts. The Biawawi one will be on site in roughly 2 months. We should have it on site in December and operating, and then the Dixie site will probably come on next year around this time as well. So we've been fortunate there, and we're hopeful to capture the ITC in that regard as well.
So in the next year or so, you're developing far more wind than geothermal. Where is geothermal going to be in your portfolio in the coming years? I mean, is it going to speed up, and is it going to be growing as fast as wind and solar?
Well, remember, we're developing both at the same time, and the difference is capacity factor for geothermal. So even though the numbers may be smaller in terms of a couple of 100 megawatts, when you're looking at the overall potential of those units and running at a 24/7 basis, in terms of megawatt hours, it's not that much different, because on a wind side, you've got about 30 to 33% capacity. So the reality are we are significantly growing in all avenues at Terra-Gen. We are looking at wind, but we also are looking at geothermal and the importance and the stability that provides to the grid. And in the Reno area as well for NV Energy, providing baseload power, and wheeling that through into California to provide baseload power for there as well. It's very, very important.
Do you think that's overlooked often in the press, for example? I mean, it's much easier to just talk about initial capacity, but when you look at the actual operation of these geothermal plants, quite a bit more electricity comes.
Absolutely. I mean, the geothermal sites are a true hedge for coal generation. Coal can operate 24/7, whenever needed. Geothermal can do the same. Once you get a geothermal site up and running, it runs day in, day out. I mean, our sites have capacity factors of close to 99%. So when the availability is the same. When they're up, they're running. We have durations of short major maintenance outages in a given year, but that's just days. So the reality of the situation is I do think it's overlooked, and I think it's important to make sure the geothermal industry does focus on that for folks.
Well, Joe Greco, thanks very much for talking to us.
Sure.